Welcome back, everyone. Today I played in the 14th and final round of the FIDE Candidates tournament here in Madrid, Spain. Now today I had the black piece against Ding Liren. If I drew the game or won the game, I would get clear second place. If I lost the game, Ding would overtake me and finish in second place himself. So without further ado, let's jump into the game. So the game starts d4, knight f6, c4. Now here I played e6, knight f3, d5, knight c3, and now I chose to play c5 rather than my classic Queen's Gambit decline defense. I decided to play the semi-terror. So after c5, Ding plays e3, knight c6, pawn to a3, I take on c4, and I play a6 here. Now he plays bishop d3, and now I play the move pawn to b5, d takes c5, bishop takes c5, and now after b4, I play bishop e7. All of this is pretty standard here, nothing too crazy. Castles, bishop b7, bishop b2 castles, and now here Ding plays knight e4 after quite a bit of a think. Probably he should have played queen e2 or queen c2, and white is a little bit better, but after knight e4, black should be completely fine. So I traded here, and now I played this move f5, and Ding sank into a long thought before playing this move bishop b1, which really surprised me, as now I thought that after queen takes, rook d8, I should be completely fine here, if maybe not even perhaps trying to press for a small advantage. Ding played bishop a2, king f7, and now he plays this move h4, and here I start going wrong. Now, it's worth noting that at this point, I had not used a lot of time. I was feeling very good about myself. I thought that the game was going to be drawn very soon, and because of this mindset and the fact that I was feeling so confident, I played this move h6 very quickly, and I would regret it very, very soon. What I should have done here is I should have played rook takes d1, and after rook takes d1, rook d8. Now, if white trades on d8, I can play bishop d8, and after this move knight g5, we trade, and even though white has the bishop pair against the bishop and the knight, there's a very simple way for me to equalize here, which is I can go knight e7. Let's say white plays a move like bishop b3, just to illustrate the point, and now I go knight c8 here, and after bishop d4, knight d6, followed by knight c4, let's say f3, knight c4, for example, white can no longer win in this position. If he trades, it's bishops of opposite colors, and the game will end very, very soon. So I should have done this, and the reason that I was so upset actually during the game is that in this position after rook f8, I did see the idea of rook c1, and I was going to go king f7 here because now rook c6 doesn't work because of the back rank checkmate. And if white tries h4 here, I can just play bishop f6, and it's completely fine. Black might even be a little bit better here. So after bishop a2, king f7, h4, for some reason I just thought, well, there's no difference, and I blitzed out this h6 move in probably like 10 to 15 seconds, and it was a huge mistake, because now after rook dc1, I do have to be a little bit careful. Now it's worth noting that initially I thought after bishop f6, knight d4, this should be a very quick draw, but after knight d4, rook c7, king g6 here, white can now take on d4, and after takes, pawn takes bishop d5, while the computer says this is zeros after rook d5, rook e1, it gets a little bit tricky here because after I play rook d6, white can now go d5, pawn takes, rook e7, and after rook g8, white can play rook e d7, and after trades and rook c8, this should be a draw, but it feels a little bit tricky just due to the weaknesses, like there might be a rook d6, there's also rook d5. Now this, of course, should be a very easy draw. Again, it's very easy to spot this after the game with the help of the computer, I must say, whereas during the game, it feels a little bit tricky here. There might even be a move like rook g6 potentially, so you can sort of see some of the danger. Now, that really doesn't excuse the fact that I didn't play bishop f6 anyway after a very long think here, because bishop f6 would have probably led to a draw. The other thing that I can do after knight d4 is, even if I'm unsure about this specific line, is I can also take with the bishop here. And now after pawn takes, I can play the move knight e7, rook c7, and after this move bishop d5, this should also probably be a draw without too much difficulty. So this would have made much more sense, but after a long think, I play this move bishop d6. Now, the bishop d6 is not a huge blunder, but the problem after bishop d6 is now I have to shift the mindset where I know I know that I missed a draw with rook takes d1, but B, there's no clear easy way to force a draw here now, unlike say in the other lines where all the pieces come off the board. The pieces now stay on. So here Ding plays rook c2. Now I play knight to e7. He goes knight to d4. I play bishop d5, trying to exchange the bishops. We trade. Plays rook a c1. Now I go rook d7, and now he finds a very nice move, knight b3. Now the reason this move is so important is that if I get a free move, let's just say white plays g3, and I'm able to play a5, all of the queenside pawns come off the board here, and this position should be a draw without too much difficulty. Eventually, we're going to end up with a setup of rooks and maybe bishop and knight on the board, but it's going to be 4 pawns on the king side, and this should be pretty straightforward. So knight b3 kind of stops that, because now I can't go a5, and more importantly, if I go knight b6 to try and put the knight on c4, white can now play knight a5, and he controls c4, and there's the idea to go to c6 and potentially e5 later on. So I played bishop e7 here. Now he plays h5, which really surprised me. I was expecting g3, because after h5, it feels like this pawn could become a weakness. Now, the irony is that as it turns out, this pawn is a large reason why Ding goes on to beat me in this game, but this felt kind of wrong at the time. So here I play bishop f6, trying to exchange the bishops, get one less piece, or remove one more piece from the board. Plays bishop d4, now I play e5, and here he played this move bishop c5, which really confused me. I was expecting him to go bishop a1, and now after knight b6, knight a5, rook d8, I think black is okay here, but it's still kind of tricky after this knight c6 move. But Ding played bishop c5 very quickly, and now I was very kind of taken aback, but I played bishop d8 here. Idea to play knight f6 and target the pawn on h5. Also because now the c file is closed here, white cannot do anything with the bishop in the way of the rooks. So after bishop d8, he plays rook to d2. I go knight f6, targeting the pawn on h5. We swap the rooks, rook d1, knight f6, and here Ding plays bishop d6, attacking the pawn on e5. And now I play knight g4. King e6 is not possible, because then white has knight c5 check, and I lose the pawn on e5. And if I push e4, then white goes knight d4, and even though I'll get the h5 pawn, the swap is not very good for me, because the pawn on e4 is potentially very weak in the long term. So I play knight g4 here, guarding the pawn, and now Ding plays bishop c5. Now this move really threw me for a loop, because I was expecting him to go knight c5. So when he didn't play this move and he played bishop c5, I used quite a bit of time here, and I played this move bishop h4, which in retrospect I should not have done. I simply should have gone knight f6 back and made Ding play this position with the knight on c5, but I thought that he had kind of made a slight mistake here by allowing this, and when I saw the idea of rook d8, I thought that I was in great shape. So Ding makes a check, I go king g8, he plays g3, and now I make what I think is the start of sort of a series of inaccurate moves. What I should have done here is played rook d8. Now, for some reason, I thought that after rook d6, this felt quite scary, because if I trade the rooks here and go bishop d8, white gets knight c5. Now, the computer doesn't care. It says that after a5, black is completely fine. Again, very easy with the computer analysis to spot that this should be okay. But over the board, it feels kind of scary here, because it feels like b5 is loose, e5 is loose, and there might be a bishop d6 move. But the computer, again, just says you very quietly ignore it with bishop b6, and you can eventually bring the king over, and it should be a draw. Hard to judge. That being said, I probably should have used more time, but I figured after bishop g5 I should be fine. He goes king f1, and this is where I finally make what I think is the fatal mistake by playing this move bishop d8. What I should have done is, again, I should have played rook d8, because after rook d6 here, I can just trade, go king f7, and on knight c5, this very nice move bishop to e7, white has to trade, and after knight a6, king d6, white has to go knight c5, knight f6, and this pawn on b5 is very safe here. I'm going to win the pawn on h5, and the game should be drawn very shortly. For whatever reason, having already felt a little bit of danger, I played this move bishop d8. Now this was just a very bad move objectively. Rook d8 was probably the move that I should have found. Again, as I've said, I felt like my timing was a little bit off throughout this game. I don't know if it's just because I was feeling nerves or what was going on exactly, but I simply couldn't bring myself to use a lot of time until it was too late. So I think it's sort of in my mind, it's just like I have to make moves, I have to keep the tempo going, and I did not use my time very well here. So I played bishop d8. Ding plays rook b7, and now I played f4, sort of a desperation shot. Basically what I'm doing by playing f4 is I'd love to go knight f6 here, but after bishop d6, if we get this position, the 3 pawns versus 3 pawns, white is much better, because he's just going to go after the pawns on b5 and a6. Whereas when I play f4 here, I'm willing to gambit a pawn, but I'm going to win the pawn on h5 here, and now white's going to have the double pawns, and even though the computer says that white's quite a bit better in this position, it feels like there are going to be good drawing chances. Now, as an example of how much pressure there is on all the players here, Ding, even though he is the #2 player in the world, he also makes some mistakes as well. So after rook b7, f4, he takes, now he plays the very strange move e4. Now, this was probably the last moment where I could have saved the game. I should have played this move f3, and in retrospect, I'm a little bit confused as to why I didn't do it, because I'm pretty sure that during the game, I remember seeing knight d4, knight e5, knight f5, bishop f6, bishop e7, and this move rook c8, and black is actually saving the game here quite comfortably. And I know that in some iteration I saw this, but then at the board, for some reason, I just played bishop f6 very quickly. And this is sort of the fatal blunder. After that, there's no real hope. But if I had played f3 after knight e4, knight e5, knight f5, bishop f6, black is probably okay here because the king cannot get active. The pawn prevents the king from going to e2 or g2. And I always have ideas like rook d8 and rook d1 activating, and the knight stops white from taking the d file here, or taking the d7 square, I should say. So it was very strange that I didn't play that move, because thinking about it now afterwards, I'm sure that I considered it, but for some reason I just didn't play it. Now, as I said before, again, even these moves, I was only using maybe 10 minutes. I just was not using my time correctly. And I think a large part of that is because I was simply trying to keep the flow going and avoid using too much time and maybe making a blunder or worrying too much. Of course, obviously, I had about a half hour. I should have been using that time. At any rate, I played bishop f6, knight d4 was played, and now I played rook e8. And here Ding found a very, very good move. Initially, I thought that after rook e8, I already was very close to saving the game, because if white plays f3, I have knight e3, and then rook e5 to win the h-pawn and activate on h2. But then I actually saw this when Ding was thinking. I saw that he could go king g2 or even king e2. I don't know which one is better, but the fact that he found it was a very, very good move. Now I played knight e5, he plays knight f5, and here we've reached the time control, but again, keeping with the theme of sort of just not really being quite right, or not, I don't know if it's like mentally just being tired, what was going on. I played this f3 move very, very quickly, and this was just based on a clear miscalculation when I played this move. I should have played knight c4, and now after bishop e7, if we trade and I go king f7, white is still quite a bit better after knight g6, king f8, but it's tricky. It's not simple for white to win here. In fact, computer says that after knight e7, king f7, knight g6, king g8, white should play king f3, knight d2 takes, rook e4, and king f5, and after rook e8, rook a7, white is better here, but there are probably some drawing chances, since now white is not going to have two connected pawns like he ends up with in the game. Alas, I played f3 very quickly. He goes king g3, knight c4, and now he played this bishop e7 move, which for whatever reason, I simply did not see, and now I played bishop b2. And I could have maybe traded again, but after knight e7, the problem is that in this position, after king g8, I believe that white can take, and now after knight d2, white can go king e3, because on knight e4, I believe knight e7, king f7, takes, king f5, king f7, and f3 is winning. If white plays f4 black, I think, oh, maybe this is also winning, but I thought maybe I have some g6 trick, although I guess king e6 wins. But even f3 here, and white just is winning, because after king f8, I have to yield. And then white eventually pushes the f-pawn up, and he gobbles the h-pawn, and then he starts running all the way over to eat the pawns on a6 and b5. So after bishop e7, I played bishop b2. He goes king f3, which I think was actually inaccurate. I think rook a7 probably is just winning here on the spot, but I took, and now I played king g3. And now I played this knight e5 move, which is just completely insane. I had to play a5. And after a5, this probably is still losing objectively for a couple of reasons. White can play bishop c5, even pawn takes, knight takes, rook b5 takes, rook a5, bishop b4, rook a7 takes, king h8, rook g4. It feels very, very hard to play here for black. I probably should have done this anyway. Rook e5 takes and rook b5. Again, I don't know if this is salvageable or not. During the game, I certainly did not think it was. But the problem is, at least here, there are chances for white to go wrong, whereas in the game, there really are no chances for white to go wrong. Because now he plays bishop c5, I go knight f7, and now f3 is played. Not the absolute best move, but it's good enough anyway, because the problem is my bishop is very passive. I can no longer play a5. If I go a5, for example, there's a very nice line with knight e7, king h7, and now white just goes knight c6. He's going to take on a5, and when he takes on a5, now b5 falls, and b4 is not weak, so this would just be completely lost. So I play bishop c1 here. Now at this point, I'm just making moves. It's all just gone already. Rook a6, I check. Play bishop c3. He goes here. I go here. He checks. King h8, check. Does a little bit of a check, and then he plays knight d5. I don't know if knight d5 was the absolute best move, but it's a great concept. And the point is that after bishop b2, rook a2, if I go bishop f6, white can just trade and play bishop d4. And after king g7, rook a7, knight f7, rook a6 is just winning for white here. Knight e5, rook b6, for example. And if I play bishop e5, white can play f4, and this is winning. Now, I probably should have done this anyway, but I did see that after knight e4, there's a very clean finish. Takes, rook takes e5, and now white has a very nice move, knight to f4 here, and after rook g5, there's a very nice finish with king f3, knight c5, rook check, king h7, and I thought knight g6 was winning here, because after takes, there's check, king here, and I thought, oh, maybe I miscalculated this. I guess check and king f7, knight c5 is still probably winning for white. Although I did miscalculate this line because I thought that actually could just take here, and if rook c5, there was check winning the game. Although I do have rook f5 here, which saves it. So after knight d7, king f7, knight c5, white is still probably going to win. But I should have played this anyway, just because. That being said, I don't know if Ding would have played f4 at all. He also can just go rook a5. After knight e6, rook b5, he simply has 2 extra pawns, and this should also be cleanly winning. So I play bishop c1 because I saw the line with f4 that I thought was winning. And now after rook c2, I go bishop a3, and now Ding plays bishop e3. Very clean move. And now I resign the game here for a very simple reason. White is going to go rook a2, and the bishop is simply trapped. If I play a move like knight e6, he goes rook a2, the knight guards b4, b2 is covered, c1 is covered. And after rook a8, white can go bishop c1, and the pin, white will win the bishop on a3 or win the rook on a8. And so here, I unfortunately had to resign the game. And with it, I throw away what would have been one of my greatest results ever in the event. It's obviously very disappointing. As I said, I think today, I don't know if it's just mentally there was something off. Maybe I was just tired. But once I missed this draw with rook takes d1 on move number... I forget what number it was. Yeah, it was all the way back here. Once I missed this draw with rook d1 on move 18 and rook d8, I simply could not reset. I was just moving a little bit too quickly. And that's not to say that it's like excuses or like, you know, Ding didn't play well, because he obviously found some very, very good moves. Rook b7 was very good. Putting the knight on b3 later on, those were 2 really, really good concepts. King g2 as well. But I just couldn't really find that rhythm today, unfortunately. And it's a very frustrating way to end the event, because the other 2 losses, I could very clearly, I think, say that my opponent did certain things well. I made like 1 wrong move against Fabiano. I took a chance against Timur, whereas in this game, it felt sort of self-inflicted when I didn't trade the rooks on d1. So it's very, very disappointing way to finish the event, obviously. Nonetheless, if you had asked me before the event if I would be happy with the plus score, I would have been ecstatic because I was competitive. And so even though I end up throwing this game and I end up in a tie for 3rd place, it's still positive when all is said and done. So I do hope you guys have enjoyed all these recaps that I've done throughout the event. It's been a very long event. I've been here in Spain for, I want to say, close to a month now. At any rate, it was a great event, and even though today didn't go the way I wanted to go, I hope you enjoyed the recaps. If you've not already subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will be back with some YouTube-only content in the near future. We have some more videos of games that I played out in El Retiro Park against some of the street hustlers, so there will be more content coming up pretty soon. But at any rate, to all of you guys who've watched all these candidates recaps, thank you so much, and I hope you've enjoyed them.